What's up, marketers, and welcome to another episode of the Growth Colony podcast. I'm Liza from Xgrowth to tell you that each episode we bring in B2B leaders to chat about how you can achieve those everyday wins in the marketing world. Whether you're new to the B2B game, working at a leadership level, or even just showing some interest, we know you'll love the episode. So grab a drink, get comfy, and enjoy the show.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode. I'm Shaheen Hoda with Xgrowth, and today I have an awesome guest on the podcast. I have David Arnoux, CEO and co-founder of Growth Tribe. I'm really excited about this episode because I don't know if I've told you this, David. I've followed your journey for the past probably 5 years, looking at what Growth Tribe is doing, and at the very first, I was fascinated by Growth Tribe's name. I would say potentially has even influenced our podcast name, which is Growth Colony, and very, very fascinated with the programs that the team had rolled out. So I'm very excited for everyone who's listening. I'm very excited, and David, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks. I'm really excited to be here too, and all of these sort of amazing things we're gonna talk about. So I'll try to condense as much sort of insights and information as possible. I've listened to a few episodes from the podcast, and I know that you all tend to go quite deep, and it's really good content in there. So I hope I won't provide answers that are too obvious or open too many open doors, let's say.
I highly doubt that, man. Knowing you and been following you, I highly doubt that. But what I really want to touch on our episode today is around kind of breaking through the noise in the B2B space. I mean, that is definitely a challenge in a lot of B2B, for a lot of B2B organizations where they all sound the same and it's very hard to distinguish. So I want us to focus on that and talk about that on today's podcast. I want to kind of hear a little bit about how you did that with Growth Tribe and what are you implementing there. So the first thing I want to talk about, right, is can you give a very quick overview about Growth Tribe? Because I don't think everybody has context of what Growth Tribe does.
Yeah, so what we basically truly believe that upgrading brains is the number one way to increase business performance. And by upgrading brains, I mean that the digital landscape is moving so fast. There's so many new tools, bells, whistles, methodologies, mindset that teams and organizations can use to grow, to beat the competition, to serve customers better. We believe that the number one activity that drives ROI for a team or a business, and we've seen it, we've proven it, is not investing in new tools, new sort of consulting methods, upgrading infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera. It's really upgrading the brains of the teams and of the organization. So we deliver learning journeys through our learning platform, and we have a mix of live and a library that's on our learning platform. So that's what we do today. We've been around for about 8 years. We have 38,000 alumni now, 38,000 plus alumni. I think we've trained 1,000 teams/companies. We get an average satisfaction score of 9 out of 10 because we're obsessed with the product. So 9 out of 10 on our sort of learning journeys. We've been ranked number one in a bunch of sort of rankings as best edtech company, educational company, et cetera, et cetera. But what we try to do, and I'll stop the intro, we really believe that people see learning and training as something that's kind of boring and compliance training and it takes forever and I don't have time. So we make sure that as soon as somebody jumps into a Growth Tribe learning journey, they can start applying what they're learning, not like next year, not next month, actually the next hour. Extremely hands-on, practical things that you can actually start applying for your personal growth and your business growth. Also, hence the name Growth Tribe. It's all about personal growth, business growth, and growth as a society in general. So that's about it in a nutshell. And today we operate mostly in Europe, although we're starting to have a few clients here and there, whether it's on the American side or more on the Southeast Asian side and in the Gulf countries.
Well, we're going to keep an eye out on the Southeast Asia APAC region for sure. And you talk about, making sure it's applicable from the moment that people jump on and it's boring. Every single time I've read about a course that you're offering, about a program that you're offering, it makes me itch to jump in and learn more about it. So it's just, you do an amazing job. The first thing I want to touch on is, and I want to get your insights on, is what has got Growth Tribe here? What have been the channels and tactics that has fueled Growth Tribe's growth to today as we speak?
Yeah. So good question. And unfortunately, I might give kind of an obvious answer. And it also depends on the stage you're in. So if we imagine like a 0 to 1 stage or 1 to 10, and let's say 10 to 100, something like that. So on those three stages, actually, the way we deliver what we do changed, but the fundamentals are kind of the same. And it's what you hear a lot about in specifically B2B, a combination of inbound partnerships and robust content strategy, including in our case, many events. I really like two notions. First is the notion of product channel fit. Are you on a channel that fits product that you're selling? And also, does your marketing reflect your product well? For us, it's pretty simple to set up a good, strong content strategy and inbound strategy and partnerships because we're all about content and learning. So it kind of comes naturally to us. But those have been crucial, and especially many events. Growth Tribe started as a meetup, actually. It was called the Growth Amsterdam Meetup some 8 or 9 years ago. So it was a meetup. We'd get together. I think we were like 50, 60 people. It was a retention rate of like 90%. That's when I saw we were onto something. And it was just getting together. And I would do some presentations at first. And then other people started to present, and it sort of grew organically into an academy and now a learning platform today. But that's really been crucial. Our learning offering, our learning platform, and our live sessions, because what we do is we do a hybrid. We have platform plus live. It's often discovered through just the high quality content we produce. We know what content is: blog posts, webinars, social media, events, white papers, just producing a lot of content. It's the product itself, actually. Also some collaborations that have been good, because you can't, especially in B2B, you shouldn't always be shouting your own legitimacy to the world yourself. Somebody else should say it for you as well. And then some other basic obvious things like leveraging SEO and data-driven marketing. It's just ensured that our content not only reaches a wide audience, but also the right audience. And I think in this day and age, maybe one important thing that I've learned is, so for a lot of us in marketing, we kind of have shiny new object syndrome or some form of ADHD where we want to jump on every single new channel and tactic and every single new method that a new LinkedIn influencer posts about. And we think that's the new revolution or what we should be doing this week, when it's actually getting getting the basics right is often the hardest. Who's my customer? What are their pains? The key is to deliver consistent value and actionable insights in every interaction over the long term. It's all about building trust and positioning yourself as a thought leader in the field. And that long-termism, it's often missing in marketing, even in B2B marketing. Really thinking not what's going to happen at the end of the month or at the end of the quarter, but a multi-year strategy and plan, and delivering it consistently. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint, and you start to reap compound returns over time. Not always easy with targets, but it's so important. And that's maybe one thing I've learned over the past 9 years in growing this business specifically.
I love it. Obviously, at the beginning, you were very hands-on, especially around the growth component, and you were all on the tools. And as you've kind of transitioned into the CEO role, I'd kind of love to also hear, what are the big levers that you're now pulling for the organization to see the next round of growth at that higher level? And you might say, hey, you're still in the weeds and you're still, I'm keen to hear that as well, if that is the case. But if it's not, what are the big levers that you're pulling on?
Yeah. So in terms of being in the weeds, I think you should have some level of being in the deep end from time to time. So for certain projects, yes, definitely. Also, we're not a 1,000-person company. So the thing we're really excited about, so once you've got your fundamentals straight, which is already hard enough, I'm excited about two things at the moment. The first one might be counterintuitive, but it's this notion of via negativa, doing less and having more focus. So there was this beautiful research done. I can't remember which university it was. It was 8 or 9 years ago. They asked a bunch of college graduates to improve a process or a system or a business. And every single person in that room, the way that they decided to improve it was by adding things. Nobody thought about removing things and making things actually simpler. And I'm on a mission to make the business slightly more simple so that we can have a lot more focus at the moment, because your number one resource is time and your number one weapon is definitely focus. That's number one. Now, number two, a little bit more fun. We're currently investing heavily in AI and machine learning to personalize the learning experience for our users. We believe that tailored learning paths can significantly enhance engagement and outcomes and impact. And we're also looking at a few new markets and continuously expanding course offerings and the quality of what we deliver. So that's kind of the three things: doing less and focusing, tapping into the amazing potential of this Gen AI S-curve, this Gen AI wave, which is, I promise you, it's not just a hype, it's here to stay. It's a big one. And then tapping into exploring new markets and expanding our offering, which we just continuously do like any tech firm.
I want to come back and allocate a fair bit of time to talk about Gen AI and where do you see having the biggest impact? You talked about personalization, but a few different things. I want to really get your insight on that front. One of the things that I'd like to also know is on that first point where you talked about doing less. How are you approaching that? How are you, evaluating where we're prioritizing? What is that? Is there a methodology that you have, or is this a systematic approach that you're taking? Very keen to hear more about your approach on that front.
Yeah, it's the culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? So it's really about embedding it within the culture. So essentially, it's just repeating it again and again. How can we focus more? I'll give you maybe 2-3 examples. Just go to any piece of content that you're about to release. I'll try to stay marketing focused at the moment, not operational, not product. Go to any piece of content that you're about to release or produce and just strip 50% of it. It's kind of the Ernest Hemingway way of writing as well, right? Sticking to the core essential. Go to your top 3 landing pages right now, where you're doing lead generation. Just remove 50% of the content and focus on the best 50%. It's also why when we're doing sort of a UI design, we like to start with mobile first and do a desktop later, because it forces you to focus on the essentials if you're designing for mobile first and then for desktop. Because desktop, you can just cram everybody's wishes from internally onto that page on a large desktop, whereas on mobile, you really need to focus. And I would say, B2B marketing and B2B product are so closely related. I would maybe challenge you to do the same thing with features on the product, for example. And when you're looking at an onboarding flow, you're trying to maybe cram down too much into the user's throat right away. How can you strip down that onboarding flow by 90% even and stick on the 10% that are going to have the 90% outcome? It's really just about the power law, again, that 80-20 rule, which, by the way, apparently is a fractional law. So it comes from physics. It's the notion, we all know the 80-20 rule: 20% of input gets 80% of the output, 20% of salespeople get 80% of the sales, 20% of the marketing efforts get 80% of the marketing results, et cetera, et cetera. Turns out that rule is a fractional law. So there's actually, it's like a 454. So it's, fractal law, sorry. So if you zoom in, there's an 80-20 in the 80-20 and then 80-20
within an 80-20 within an 80-20.
Yeah, exactly. So 4%
blows your
of your
mind when you do like, yeah. It's like 50,
yeah.
it's a crazy number. It's like 4% gives like 50% or something like that.
Something like that. Exactly.
First time I looked at that, it was just mind boggling.
So what can you remove, right? It's like, not what can I add, what can I remove to this process, remove to this product, remove to this feature list, remove to this marketing strategy, remove to this schedule, remove to your calendar. And that is just a breath of fresh air. And it forces you to, a lot of the time, do a bit of user research, because you don't have the answer. Tap into the data that you have. It really forces you to understand yourselves, your customer better, look at the data. It's a very, very interesting exercise. Via Negativa.
I need to. Yeah, Via Negativa. I hadn't heard of it from that perspective. I gotta. Is that, what is that? Is that like a term that is that something that is coined? Via Negativa. I hadn't come across it before.
I think it's like it's Greek or it's linked to Christian
for it,
or Christian theology or something like this. I actually don't know the source. I need to know this.
It always sounds better in Greek or Latin or something like that.
I think it's religious, if I remember correctly.
I see. Okay. I also love the 50% removal. I mean, you talking about it, I was like, maybe I should do that with my calendar and have a look at that. This very powerful. And I love the simplicity of it. You're like, remove 50%. Don't overthink it.
There's yeah, I mean, it's easier said than done. There's also a great notion. It's this notion of the return on energy of what we're doing. So I have this pyramid in my brain. I can't remember where it comes from, but I saw it in like a mental models piece that I had written before. And it was basically not looking at the ROI per se of a business, but looking at the ROE of the energy that you put into your business, so that your team puts into the business. Let's keep it on the personal point of view. That's where it's the simplest. So you imagine this pyramid, and then you've got negative return on energy at the top, low return on energy at the second layer, high return on energy third layer, and then compound return on energy at the bottom. So the negative return on energy, it's all the stuff we know. It's the distractions, it's the social media, it's the scrolling through LinkedIn and all that stuff. Although I love LinkedIn, all of that stuff, and answering the comments, all of the little stuff that's easy, but that actually has low return on energy. Then negative return on energy. It's bad for you. It's eating too much sugar, right? The second one is the low ROE. That's the easy stuff that won't hurt you, but that doesn't really have an impact. So that's writing social media post maybe, or maybe not, but answering emails, answering Slack messages, all of that stuff. It's also easy, but it has low return on energy. Then you go into the world of sort of the high ROE stuff. So the high return on energy. So a manager coaching a team member, teacher giving a lesson, construction worker building a wall, creating content, building a strategy. That's good stuff. It has high return on energy. The one we often forget is the lower one, which is the compound ROE, the compound return on in the world of compound returns. So that's things like exercise, building viral engine, network effects, building a community, or learning. Also, things that compound over time, just like in finance, the financial returns of compound interest rates. These are things that have compound returns over time, which means that it's like this hyperbolic curve a little bit, where at first you don't really see the return on energy or return on time, and then it just goes parabolic. Viral engines, for example, is a really good example of this one. If you can nail those, if you can figure them out, absolutely mind-blowing. And I believe, just to close the loop, that via negativa, or at least removing things, actually has compound returns. So embedding that practice of removing things within the business on a regular basis will have compound returns if that's embedded within sort of the culture and the rituals of the business.
I love it. David, what are your thoughts on brands standing out? I mean, that's where we kind of started, right? And I'd love to hear your thoughts of like when you look at somebody and you're like, oh, they either don't stand out, they're a bit bland, or really lost in the noise. What are some of the things that you think about that B2B companies can implement for standing out from the crowd and kind of breaking through the noise? What are some of the strategies that maybe you've implemented that has been successful? Some of the strategies that you've seen others implement? Keen to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Okay. Do we want to talk like upselling, or no? We want to talk about acquisition, like awareness.
It could be both upselling and acquisition. I think both of those are pretty critical in B2B.
Okay, so I'm going to say things that are pretty obvious, I think, because they are, but they're hard to get right. I think the number one way to stand out is through, God, this is corny, but it's true. It's through value and authenticity. It's a crowded market. Like these genuine connections, they go such a long way nowadays, such a long way, because we're all for lead gen, we're all trying to blast people with cold outreach and social media posts and, LinkedIn automations. I mean, we do it too, and it works, but that won't make you stand out. It's really about that value and authenticity in a crowded market where people's attention spans, or the right to have people's attention is much reduced compared to before. I would also say focusing on delivering measurable results and using data to back up your claims in the space of B2B. People's bullshit radars are super high. And then the great one that I'm really also excited about is personalized content. What does that mean? It doesn't mean you need to run very complex personalization campaigns. It means a very simple thing. It means understanding your client, just a deep understanding of your client's pain points, but also your client's business. I can't tell you how many marketeers or salespeople and teams don't actually understand their client's business because it takes time, right? It takes a lot of time to understand a client's business. What's their SWOT for their business? What are their strengths, their weaknesses, their opportunities, their threats? Then you can build such a high level of empathy for your customers that then you can really start personalizing where it affects them. So that's kind of the third one. And then I would say maybe the last one is being proactive in experimentation with new tactics and technologies. We grew Growth Tribe thanks to a process and a culture of rapid experimentation, because I'm not a visionary. Most people aren't visionaries. I would put only maybe 10% of marketeers in the realm of they can, maybe even 5%. They can tell the future. They know what's going to work. They have that intuition. For the rest of us, mere mortals, it's about testing stuff and seeing what sticks. And it's really about having that process and that mindset of experimentation within the business, which can be harnessed through a few processes, simple processes. But it's so important to keep testing, keep experimenting, and having some basic principles in place so that experimentation is successful. But important, and I know this is obvious, always keep the customer at the center of the strategy. Understanding the customer in B2B marketing, I would say it's really understanding your customer's business and what their key strategy is and what their key pain points are and what their key opportunities are. You could do a sanity check in any B2B marketing team today, even sales team, and I think you would score maybe a 2-3 out of 10 on how little is known about the clients. Not even the ones you're trying to get, the ones you currently have.
Yeah. Do you have a experimentation framework that you really like?
Yeah. So it's also when we teach with our growth marketing and our B2B marketing learning paths. So I coined something called GROWS about 5-6 years ago, but it's basically taking the scientific method from Descartes and from Bacon and just, slapping an acronym on it. It's called GROWS, so GROWS. And basically the idea is to gather. So in the middle of GROWS, you have the one metric that matters. You really need to focus on one metric that you're trying to improve at any given time. It could be more eyeballs, so awareness. It could be acquisition, so grabbing emails, phone numbers, lead generation. It could be activation, number of phone numbers or leads that turn into customers that prospects that have had a wow moment with your product. Could be meetings booked, whatever, but focus on one metric at a time and you stick it at the middle of your growth circle. So then what you want to do is you want to gather as many ideas as possible on how to improve that one metric. And usually we like diversity of thought in that space. So if it's possible, you grab like a developer, a product person, and a marketeer. It's not 6 marketeers together. We try to have diversity of thought. We always recommend diversity of thought there. And then you just freaking blast it through either brainstorming or mindstorming as many ideas as possible on how to optimize that metric. So already agreeing on a metric can take hours. We've seen that sometimes a company or a team doesn't even agree on what metric is important to fix at any given time. Of course, it's always revenue. So it's always about increasing revenue or reducing costs. But then there's usually like a sub-metric, like a leading indicator of that one, which part of your funnel or your customer journey is broken. So let's say we're thinking about like lead acquisition, something like that. You stick that in the middle, then you try to gather as many ideas as possible. Then there's this process of ranking those ideas. There's different ways to rank it. I like to use pies, which is probability, impact, and ease. What's the probability of this working? That's kind of like a gut feeling. What's the impact it's going to have on my KPI? Big impact or small impact? And then ease. How easy is it to implement this? How easy or hard? How many resources are needed? If it's a whole big content marketing strategy, do we even have any content? If it's video marketing, do we have a videographer, et cetera, et cetera? So how easy is it? And then you try to use a bit of let everybody vote, basically, and then you can multiply everyone's vote, or you can add it. It doesn't really matter. So that's the sort of the ranking. We can share a link in the show notes where we go through the whole
that would be great.
process.
Yeah, we're definitely going to do that.
Yeah.
If there's a link.
I'll go through it just briefly. So then you rank it. Then what you want to do, this is the hard part usually, is you want to outline an experiment. So you actually want to create an experiment design your experiment, which means what's your hypothesis? I believe that by doing X, the outcome will be Y. So I'll impact that one KPI I want to improve by Y. To do that, we're going to tick. So you outline everything that you're going to do. So what that tactic is actually going to be. And then minimal success criteria, what you want the result to be. So what is the actual result that you want to achieve, under which you've got a failed experiment, above which it's a success. To do that, what data do you need? What resources do you need? Blah, blah, blah. Now, the important part is I want everyone to limit this experiment to 3 weeks maximum. Maximum.
Right.
This
Don't go
needs
crazy.
to be implemented in 3 weeks. And don't do things that are turn into projects. So if this is like a partnership strategy, okay, then you need to break it down into the riskiest assumption of that partnership strategy and validate that one first. So can we even interest partners and get them on board? If that takes 2 months to test, can we even get them to open an email? Maybe that's a first experiment you do.
I see. Yeah.
And then usually what happens is you redesign your experiment when you put that 2-3 week cap on it. Because you see that, because then it just turns into projects, which is every organization runs experiments, but they just call them projects or programs or whatever. And it takes 6 months to a year to get the results. I'm talking about velocity of experimentation, 2-3 weeks maximum per experiment. Then you'll start building that culture of experimentation. So that's the O, outline and experiment. W, work, get it done. You'll see how hard it is on the first one. Then you get better and better and better. If you can get through the first 3-4 experiments, you've already learned a lot about yourselves as a business. And then you've also learned a lot about the customer along the way. And then you start getting better at it. And then after the 7th or 8th or 10th experiment, you start to get some positive results. I don't even care about getting a win after the 7th or 8th or the 9th. What's important is the compound growth that comes through all of these smaller experiments. So that's work. And then the part that nobody ever does, because it's annoying and tedious, it's the S, it's study the results. So study the data, qualitative and quantitative, to really understand and to be able to grow and use it as use that experiment as a springboard to the next one. So study the data, study the results. First experiment, you'll find out you're not collecting the data is broken, the data is all over the place, you can't get the qualitative data, nobody wants to do the interviews, et cetera, et cetera. And then that S, study the results, feeds into then the next ones. And it's a virtuous circle.
The next G.
And the next G, exactly. Or you just go on the next one that's already been ranked. So sometimes you just go back into outline, experiment, work, study, outline, experiment, work, study. And then you just start to, basically start growing like that. And it sounds maybe quite straightforward. It isn't. It's chaotic, but it's amazing. And I think it's the best way to, the best tip on growth is to embed this mindset, this culture, and this process of experimentation in order to grow. Then you've also got companies who do too much of it, where it's experimentation all over the place, and then it's about sort of reining it in and getting good at business process management, for example.
Limiting it. Got it.
Yeah, limiting
Got it. Great insights on that front. I love that, and we definitely need to put that in the show notes because I think that's going to be that's golden. Last thing I want to touch on before we wrap up is Gen AI, and I know you're very active in this space. You not only from Growth Tribe perspective, but personally, you're very active in this space as well. What is exciting you about Gen AI? What are you focusing on? You've talked about personalization a little bit, but what are you focusing on? And we can talk about it both from a Growth Tribe perspective. We can talk about it from overall just perspective. What are some of the things that are taking most of your attention and you're spending most of your time on when it comes to Gen AI?
So first of all, from Growth Tribe point of view, it's a game changer for us. It enhances our ability to provide personalized learning by analyzing user data, predicting their needs. It also automates many of our marketing processes. We free up time for our team to focus on strat and creativity. Wow. We get to focus on creativity again. I absolutely love it. So for example, just the basic use cases, we use it to segment our audience more effectively, create content that resonates on a deeper level so we can spend more time being creative. In terms of like my view on this whole, some people call it hype. I don't. I think that in the next 3-4 years, it's going to be as ubiquitous as the internet today. I think it's going to touch every department, IT, human resources, all the way, the whole spectrum. I think the change we're going to see in the next 2-3 years will dwarf what we've seen in the past 30 years with like smartphones and clouds. I think it's critical to start embedding Gen AI inside your workflows. I really do. I think there's a threat and an opportunity there. So we're going through a new technological revolution, right? It's one that's as impactful as the internet, semiconductors, mobile, cloud, all of that stuff. It's the new S-curve. Now, the beginning of the wave is a chance to get ahead. You get to surf it and win rather than sit back and surfing analogy, then drown or fall in the water, let's say. Now, this AI adoption, it's booming. Most leaders are very clear about the long-term benefits, although they're not completely clear about how to start implementing it. And since 2023, we've seen an explosion on the use of Gen AI. There was this beautiful McKinsey report which showed that organizations that have adopted AI in the last one business function went from 33% to 65%. That's doubling in 1 year from 23 to 24. Now, the thing is, you need to be a bit patient because right now we're only seeing the individual benefit, right? Which projected productivity benefit 0 to 1 year. So we're already seeing it. Next phase is going to be the scaling up. So projected productivity is like medium to high, and you're going to see the results of everything that's being implemented now next year and then for the next 4 or 5 years. And then it'll be a place of workplace maturity, 6 to 10 years after that. Now, 83%, I can't remember this stat, but there was this Oliver Wyman report that was really nice. 83% of business leaders, they expect Gen AI to have a positive or transformative impact on their business in the next 5 years. Now, there was this in the same piece, the McKinsey piece I was referring to before, there's already like the early adopters of this wave, those that are riding it, they're seeing an impact of Gen AI on their top line and their EBIT. And some are attributing up to 10% of their EBIT to Gen AI. And, we see it in the use cases, right? So there's like these use cases of using AI to personalize product recommendation, personalized marketing with like 3x increase in marketing campaign effectiveness, using these conversational interface to reduce the need for human agents. There was this dynamic pricing, et cetera, et cetera. So lots of interesting use cases. The number one use case at the moment is it's a knowledge management tool inside an organization. Gather all of the information of a business, and then you have a knowledge management tool. But customer facing, we're seeing a lot as well. And what's really, really interesting for me and for us in this B2B marketing sort of podcast is that the most prevalent use and early adopters of Gen AI, they're actually in marketing and sales. So we're in the forefront. We're in the trenches. We are on the
Seen that data. Yeah. It's fascinating.
Yeah. And marketing, sales, product, and IT are the most likely to implement this Gen AI and to benefit from it. So we're the front runners, right? And what I also see is that teams and companies, they go through different phases. So it's like skepticism, then they start to activate, then they start to experiment, then they start to scale, and then they go to maturity. Skepticism, get rid of that now, run some power sessions internally, start spreading the word, being a champion, get into that stage 2 around activation and then experimentation. It's definitely a journey. You need to get a few things right to get started, and this is where it starts to get interesting. The companies that are getting the best results from Gen AI. So I think we've run about 100 Gen AI training programs now. So we see that the companies getting the best results from this Gen AI wave, they have clearly defined best practices. They have leaders who are trained up and get it. The leadership understands it. And they've started to curate learning journeys by roles. They started to appoint heads of AI. Senior leaders, they understand how Gen AI can create value for the business. And they actually have a strategy. And they understand the risk and they understand what the main blockers are, just off the top of my head. Now, what we also see is that the number one best practice, the first step that keeps coming back again and again and again, is around this notion of raising the floor within the business as well as you raise the ceiling. It's boosting comprehension, investing in comprehension of what can this do? How does this work? I think that's the number one secret of these stage 5 companies that are in sort of workplace maturity. Then you also need to address concerns, prioritizing AI safety, embracing like this human in the loop approach, having a strat, developing these strong AI foundations and data foundations. But we really see that one as being, I really see that one as being critical to start embracing it, because you can't just start navigating waters that you don't understand, especially at the leadership level. Everyone's playing around with it. Everyone's playing around with ChatGPT and Perplexity and Claude, but we're still not at the stage where use cases are being defined and time is being allocated to actually implementing this, in a team, in a department, and then company-wide, I would say in most cases. So long story short, I'm really excited about it. I see the lack of maturity all over the place, but I see it also as being really easy to fix with a little bit of time investment.
You touched on some of the tools that pretty much everybody is across, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude. What are some of the tools that are on your radar that maybe not as well known? And I'm talking about obviously the Gen AI tools.
Oh, Gen AI tools. Yeah. So any use case or
I'd like to know what's on your radar. So it could be it could be any use case.
Yeah. So
Because the reason David, I'm asking this question is because I also think there is a lot of tools that it's like, oh, this is nifty, but what do I do with it? And does it really come to use? I feel like there's been a lot of that happening and there's a lot of noise. So I'm really curious to hear what are some of the things that, and you might say, hey, those three are my main tools that I use and that I go to, and I don't really tackle anything else. And that's fine. That's telling in itself. But are there anything that's on your radar?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of which one to focus on because there's like 40. So I'll
give
use
me
4
five.
use cases.
Give me 5.
Okay, I'll give you 5.
Okay.
So we talked about the 3, I would say, best LLMs if you're not looking at open source. If you're looking at open source, so I would suggest playing around with LM Studio. It's a great way to be able to tap into all LLMs at the same time from your desktop, whether they're open sourced or proprietary. So you can play around with Mistral, for example. You can play around with Llama 3, et cetera, et cetera. That's using a tool called LM Studio. Just allows you to click through the different models, the different LLMs. In terms of like workflow automations, there's make.com that's really great. I have a lot of personal automations on Make. We have some team automations on Make. They allow you to create workflow automations and sprinkle some Gen AI when you need it inside that flow or that process. So that's make.com. In terms of building internal or client-facing apps that are either conversational interfaces or things that are a bit more complex, I would recommend Mind Studio. I think their URL is you.ai, you.ai, or just Mind Studio. It's, in my opinion, the easiest to use, fastest to get an output tool out there to build your own internal or client-facing mini AI app, whatever the use case is. In terms of AI agents and multi-agents inside the business, I would recommend crew.ai, crew.ai. And then just maybe 2 more, let's say 3 more. In terms of like research tool, I really like Notebook LM by Google. It's a fantastic tool where you can basically put a bunch of reports, upload reports, and then have query all of the reports at the same time. So you can have a conversation, not just with one report, but with all of the reports at the same time and do follow-up questions and get data and see the similarities between the reports, whether it's internal reports or internal, like sales and marketing pieces of content, et cetera, et cetera. In terms of prototyping and user interface, it's UIZard, UIZARD. Fantastic to create first prototypes of user interfaces, whether it's mobile or it's desktop. Also, one that I'm really excited about is, of course, 11 Labs with voice, because it's just so exciting to see that you can replicate human voice quite easily, and just by uploading a bunch of text on it. So that's sort of a little fun one.
That is that's a gold mine there. A lot to look up, and 11 Labs is pretty fun. David, this has been great, but I still have a couple of rapid fire questions. Are you ready to go through those?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to change my rapid fire questions to a question that you asked me last time we caught up.
Uh-oh.
What is something that you've come across in the past maybe 3 to 6 months that has had a massive impact? And I'm paraphrasing how you phrased it. I can't actually remember exactly what you asked me, but it was something on the lines of, what is something that in the past 3 to 6 months you've come across that has had a fundamental impact on the way that you think?
Yeah. So it's a Gen AI tool. Actually, it's
which one of the ones that we talked about?
Yeah, it's Perplexity. Perplexity.ai.
Really interesting.
Yeah, it's
very strong research tool. How you what kind of where was the impact?
Yeah, it's a thinking partner, because it very kindly and politely suggests what prompt you actually had in mind after you start prompting. So when you start diving into a subject, B2B sales, automation, B2B marketing, whatever, it starts asking questions you weren't asking yourself. So it's suggesting interesting questions. And then you go into this sort of rabbit hole of question on question on question, based on data, based on research. And you can create your own book, choose your own adventure when we were kids, one of those books. You choose your own adventure from a research point of view. So any subject you go into it, the suggested prompts are extremely powerful. And that's also what the founder set out to do, in part, was very kindly and at the bottom, like telling you what you actually wanted to ask. And a lot of the time it's spot on, and you can spend sort of an hour reading, I call them perplexity mind books, basically.
I love it. I do need to try this. If you can give one advice to B2B marketers, what would it be?
I think I mentioned, so I would really advise deep work. I think that's my leitmotif as of late. So, in terms of like, if you're going to reread anything, reread Deep Work by Cal Newport. For me, it like 7 or 8 years ago, it really fundamentally shifted how I approach productivity and focus. The concept of eliminating to achieve more meaningful and high quality work, eliminating distractions, and having that moment in a week or in a month, at least a half day, maybe even a full day, where you do deep, uninterrupted, valuable work, whether it's working on one piece, working on a strategy, working on something that's really deep, uninterrupted, full focus, 7 or 8 hours. That's so rare nowadays.
It is very rare.
Yeah. If it'll make you more productive and more of all of the above, and just a greater contributor. So that would be it's all linked, right? Deep work, focus, long-termism.
We've talked about a number of different topics. We've talked about Gen AI, we've talked about marketing, we talked about kind of standing out, growth channels. Out of the stuff that we talked about, who are some of the influencers that stand out for you? Some of the thought leaders that you like, when we talk about these, you're like, these are some of the people that you look up to or you kind of turn for inspiration to.
Well, funnily enough, I follow a lot of what is being written on our Growth Tribe blog. So a little bit of self-promotion there. But what we do is we have a lot of experts who come in from the outside and write for us, or at least we download their brains and put it on the blog. So I definitely recommend the audience checking that out. It goes deep and far, and it's quality. And you can just subscribe to the newsletter, of course. But I think in terms of sort of in the marketing and sales space, I actually don't follow that many sales and marketing people. I'm also not so much in a sales and marketing role anymore, right? I'm more on a CEO role, although a lot of my work is still in sales and marketing. But even when I was deeper in sales and marketing, I would actually follow behavioral psychologists a lot more. Dan Ariely, Daniel Kahneman, Annie Duke, Cialdini, because I find that marketing is a lot about basic human principles and understanding the human brain. And I would get a lot more value out of them than actual tacticians. If you're thinking of tacticians, for me, it would be Guillaume Cabane, Cabane, because he's really everything I love in a B2B marketeer. It's technical, analytical, data-driven, and sort of gets results. But yeah, I'm much more into the behavioral psychologist, actually.
Got it. Are there anyone in the Gen AI space that, one or two people that come to mind?
I think The Rundown is a really good newsletter to follow. I have to admit, I don't even know who it's by. So let me just check. Sorry, my screen's really high.
That's our job to find out and put it in the show notes.
And then there was also Ethan Mollick. So he's associate professor at Wharton, and he's always publishing the latest and greatest in research. Ethan Mollick, I think he's really good. So The Rundown email newsletter, and Ethan Mollick on LinkedIn, I think he posts quite a lot.
David, I want to say thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This has been a awesome conversation. There's a lot of golden nuggets there, a lot to dig through. If somebody's interested to know more about yourself or Growth Tribe, what's the best way to find out more?
Yeah, so you go to growthtribe.io to check out what we do and who we are, and we can come in, do a power session in your company, do a live session, inspiration session, or you can also just sign up to the platform and start learning and exploring. And then me personally, it's just I'm very active on LinkedIn. I try to focus only on one channel. So just come and add me on LinkedIn. Be happy to connect, and then we can continue the conversation there.
David, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, man.
Thanks a lot. It's been a pleasure.
Today's episode of Growth Colony was produced by Alexander Hipwell and Liza Maywald. It was edited by Dave Samito with additional editing by Liza Maywald and music arrangement by Alexander and Liza. Special thanks to Tina Wabe. We couldn't make the show without you. Growth Colony is hosted by Shaheen Hoda, Director of Growth at Xgrowth. If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe and give us a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Do you think you'd be a great guest or just keen for a chat? Send through an email at podcast@xgrowth.com.au. That's podcast@xgrowth.com.au. That's all for now. We'll catch you next week, right here on Growth Colony.